Ladies and gentlemen, Prime Minister, dear friends, both old and new ones especially as well, welcome to Tallinn and welcome to what is, we believe, one of the flagship events of our Estonian EU presidency this year, EU Cybersecurity Conference. My name is Siim Sikkut. I'm the government CIO in Estonia here. And so what we do, me and my team, we really make sure that we have right policies in place when it comes to how do we use technology in the government, in the whole of society, but importantly also in cybersecurity area, which is the topic of today. And why this is my portfolio is such a package and why I'm here on the stage as well is that, well, whatever we do, so whenever we use technology anywhere out there, well, we have to do it in a way that is secure. So cybersecurity policy and considerations better be part of how we plan and execute things overall. Now, before we actually get going with the official part and speeches, I will actually do two exercises with you just to make sure we are on the same page here. The very first thing is that for all of those of you who are in Estonia for the very first time and you haven't learned anything in our funky little language, you will now have a chance. Okay. So basically what I will teach you is the very basic word in every language, hello. Okay. So if you don't know the word, it's tere. Tere. So at 1, 2, 3, let's all say hello to each other. 1, 2, 3, tere. Come on, guys. 1, 2, 3, tere. Better, okay. The other thing is that I'm sure that many people know each other, but not everybody knows each other. So what we will do at another 1, 2, 3 is that when I get to 3, everybody says out their name, your name. So 1, 2, 3, Siim. Come on. 1, 2, 3, Siim. Now we all know each other. Perfect. All right. To get us going and really, let's say, start the day on a good path and yes, highlight the importance of the topic for us, I now have the honor to ask to the stage our Prime Minister to really exactly make the opening words and say a bit about, let's say, yes, why we value cybersecurity so much. So, Prime Minister Jüri Ratas, the floor is yours.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, let me start by welcoming you all to Estonia on this conference of cybersecurity, digital single market and common digital security. I will focus my remarks on a key issue in building an e-society, and that key issue is trust. Trust for the governance system from citizens, trust that the rules are the same for all. Our message to the world is very simple. To us, digital society and digital government has paid off. Dear friends, dear guests, you can live a very digital life in Estonia that is easy as well as fast and efficient. We are reaping the dividends from the information society. Similar benefits are within reach of the rest of the EU as well. Over the past 20 years, we have learned in Estonia that in a functioning e-society trust can be built only through changing our mindset. In the modern world, there is no room for a hidden agenda because everything will become public sooner or later. This means that our e-governance system needs to be designed in a way that generates and does not break trust. This also means that our citizens who trust our digital government know that we can take care of the risk that our digital lifestyle could create. Building trust has got very little to do with technical solutions, but has a great deal to do with our mindset and our culture. Changing this mindset is much more difficult and time-consuming than creating different technical solutions. This means a lot of everyday work in building openness and safeguarding privacy and transparency. In cybersecurity, these values translate into the principles of security by design, where the key pillars are strong digital identity and secure products and services, along with development of security standards. Our government can contribute by building a legal framework to support these values. Dear friends, 2 weeks ago, a group of scientists presented our auditors with proof that our ID cards have theoretical flaw that could, in a worst-case scenario, results in identity theft. This worst-case scenario is still only a theoretical possibility. No actual incident has happened. Our experts are on the top of this issue and working on a solution as we speak. We will manage it. What Estonia has done in the past 2 weeks is an example of transparent risk management. By managing the risks related to our ID cards openly and publicly, we are following the values that have enabled us to build the digital society we have. There just is no other way. This case and other current and future cases are part of Estonians' contribution to the global discussion. This is what we as a member state are doing to take care of our own cybersecurity and of course managing the risks that our digital lifestyle could bring with it. But there is also a lot that Europe can do. The digital single market cannot happen without sufficient cooperation between our member states on enduring cybersecurity in Europe, which can only be taken forward by the EU. Therefore, I am quite happy that the Commission delivered yesterday a cyber package, at the top of which is the new EU cyber security strategy. This contains a lot of good elements that could pave the way for stronger cyber security in Europe. We are ready to start working on those proposals as the presidency country, and we really hope for all of your support in putting together the Council vision about these proposals. Past 2 weeks have also made clear that Europe needs more cooperation in developing security digital identities, as their use in all member states can help us secure the digital single market. Another area which has a lot of potential is creating a more cybersecurity Europe for us. All is using blockchains in securing our digital services. In both of those areas, Estonia has considerable experience that we can contribute to the benefit of Europe. I am really glad that the Cyber Security Conference of the Estonian presidency has brought together such a big group of distinguished experts from the whole of Europe. I hope really you enjoy the stay here and your time here. Thank you for everyone, and I wish you a deep and, of course, fruitful discussions today, and hope that a takeaway of today's conference includes valuable ideas for each country and for Europe to move forward with the cyber agenda. Thank you once more.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I think you perfectly set us along the path for the next thing on the stage and screens here. Especially for today, we have prepared a video actually into the mindset, exactly with the importance of which Prime Minister mentioned. So you will get a glimpse for the first time, I think ever, in that sort of concise package into how do we view cybersecurity issues in Estonia and what do we think is our way of dealing with the risks in cyberspace to defend our digital way of life. So, the video now.
Estonia is probably one of the most digitally dependent nations in the world. We really depend on the digital infrastructure, on e-governance services in our daily lives. I think this is also a reason why Estonia and Estonians take cybersecurity and cyber defense more seriously maybe than some other nations, because our livelihood depends on that, our economic well-being depends on that.
The Estonian digital ecosystem has been developed for more than 20 years now, and it provides a method of transparent governance of the state, which helps to build a foundation of trust between the state and its citizens. In spring 2007, following the disputed relocation of the Soviet-era bronze soldier monument, the streets of Tallinn were under siege from organized rioters and looters. But besides the burning city center, Estonia faced cyber attacks that have been widely referred to as the world's first cyber war. It was the first attack against an entire nation state. At the peak of these cyber attacks, 58 Estonian websites were offline at once, including those of the government, most newspapers, and banks.
At first we thought it's a technical problem, but when the public reactions reached the government, then we understood that it destabilizes the society and poses a major threat, at least on a psychological level, although no material damage took place. So I think it was very, very important that the impact an attack has on society at large is taken into account, and this posed a security threat for a country as a whole. Then it became clear that it was not, the source was not within the society, it was not the public reaction or discontent, but this was an orchestrated effort whose roots were outside the borders of Estonia. And I think when this was understood, it became clear that the global community has got a message that cyber attacks and cyber conflicts are there to stay.
Before the events of spring 2007, cyber attacks had not been considered a serious threat to the state and citizens. This experience served as a reminder that events in cyberspace directly influence security and led to the adoption of Estonia's first cybersecurity strategy a year later. The framework document organized the relevant policy areas and thereby laid a basis for a comprehensive approach across the government and society.
The main challenge was to bring all the different stakeholders together for a same vision. We were quite lucky to have very good technical experts, but as in many other countries, cyber is not a technical issue. Cyber has to be elevated to the political level, and someone has to be able to explain to the political leaders what shall we do and what actually would help us to become more secure.
Biggest significance of the cyber attacks in 2007 was opening the international discussion. It proved to politicians and managers that cyber attacks can be dangerous to national security, and after that everybody could refer to Estonian experience and start to talk what it means for them.
It's very important to have more international cooperation. Cyber does not have borders. So does international cooperation. International cooperation is borderless. To be effective in tackling the challenges of cyberspace and cyber attacks, we have to cooperate on all different levels, starting with political cooperation and concluding with capacity building to those states who need our advice, our help, and our financial resources, as well as technical assistance.
The threats are evolving quite rapidly right now because the technology is becoming more and more ubiquitous. We see our homes becoming smarter, our cars becoming smarter. So theoretically, the state can put a lot more emphasis on even single individuals. The general pattern that is emerging today is that cyber is becoming part of the natural toolset for the state, among its other pillars of power, such as military, diplomacy, economics, and so forth. While it is not universally used on the offensive side, many countries have publicly declared that offensive cyber is something in their arsenal, and if needed, they will use it.
International law provides a number of options for states to respond to cyber operations. Today, many states are struggling to identify their position on international law because legal standards are always a double-edged sword. They limit hostile cyber operations directed against the state, but at the same time limit the state's freedom of action in cyberspace. The number one way we can enhance cyber deterrence is to clarify international law so that those who would conduct cyber operations know there will be a cost imposed when they violate international law.
There were many people that said that cyberspace was a Wild West. It was a new domain that was not governed by international law. Those people were not international lawyers. The international law community understood very quickly that the current norms that exist in international law, norms like sovereignty, norms governing warfare, such as you may not direct your attacks against the civilian population, that those norms applied fully, entirely in cyberspace. And we quickly understood that the question was not whether international law norms applied, but instead how they applied. And that's why a major project known as the Telecom project, run here in Estonia, was launched to identify precisely how the norms of international law do apply. That project, the Telecom project, over 7 years led to identification of 154 different international law rules that applied to cyber operations conducted by states and by non-state actors. And that project also identified those areas where greater clarity was needed in the application of those norms because of the unique characteristics of cyberspace.
In the United Nations, we participate in the group of the governmental experts on cybersecurity. And in that group, we talk about international law, but also talk about political norms. Political norms that are not binding, but which dictate and which predict the behavior of different states. So, for example, Estonia has been very vocal on protection of critical infra. So, for Estonia, a small country, a country that believes, trusts and supports international law, norms, rules are extremely important.
We tried to build our systems in accordance with the core principles of democracy, which means fundamentally distribution of power, and that means distribution of systems. This way, our very distributed system is not susceptible to one particular weak link being broken, but rather the entire net is resilient, the entire network, the entire system is resilient, and is therefore stronger against attack. The Estonian digital ecosystem consists of 4 separate individual ecosystems. First is digital identity. Second is the channels or the interaction between the citizen and the government information systems. Thirdly, is X-Road, and finally there's the government cloud. X-Road is probably the most significant of these 4. The key lesson we have learned there is the lesson of ecosystems. It turns out that it is not enough to assemble the ingredients of a system. There must be a spark that ignites them. that provides the service providers and the service consumers with key incentive that kicks off this positive feedback loop of the more services there are, the more often they are consumed. There are consumers, the more there are service providers.
The main thing to understand in terms of cybersecurity is that it takes constant effort and constant commitment. And in Estonia, for the past 25 years or so, there has been a steady progression towards a more digitized and secure e-state. I think the main thing to learn from the Estonian experience is that information technology can serve a very useful role in conserving resources and doing things more effectively and efficiently. However, the corollary to that is that you also have to worry about security in the IT space. So cybersecurity becomes a must. It is not an elective for Estonia. It is a mandatory thing that we have to do.
Cyber society is a societal phenomenon, and I think the level of its development, both on functional level as well as security-wise, depends on participation of different parts of the society. And academia, as well as private enterprises, contribute to the overall level of development. And I think from the security point of view, two very important aspects should be mentioned. First, that people trust the technology, that this is developed from the early days in a way that it poses no harm to its users, no backdoors, transparent policies, transparent development. So this is extremely important, and universities and research organizations together with industry partners can contribute essentially to that. And then secondly, public awareness of the possibilities, of the threats, but also the benefits of the cyber society-based services is important. And again, it's partly an educational issue, but in a broader sense, it's a societal problem where different partners must contribute, first and foremost, the businesses and academia, in addition to public services.
One of the great challenges in cybersecurity is to identify, hire, train, and retain a capable cyber workforce. In Estonia, we have two quite interesting solutions to help provide the national security aspect of this workforce. Specifically, we have the National Defense League, which is a voluntary defense organization under the military chain of command. This allows people to volunteer their time and effort and resources in order to protect the national security interests of Estonia. Since 2011, this organization has had a cyber defense unit that collects cybersecurity experts in Estonia who are willing to contribute their time for the cause of national defense.
You have many actors out there who are able to use technology against us, our political and economic interests, and we, the European Union, have to be able to protect ourselves. So this is the major goal for ourselves. So there have been many other political initiatives to pay more attention to the European Union resilience. And the new cyber strategy will be falling into the same mold in a way that it will serve a goal of making member states more resilient in cyber, and we have to make sure that there is cooperation between member states. We have to also help member states, especially those ones who have less expertise than some others. We have to help them to catch up, and we have to concentrate on prevention, on cooperation, on capabilities, and also on response.
Estonia's approach to cybersecurity has always been based on the principle that security must be part of the design process. The digital ecosystem needs security, cooperation, and compliance with international law in order to continue being a catalyst in our society.
So I hope those of you who've had less encounters with Estonians now understand a bit better why we think or say some of the things we do, right? And by the way, in the meantime, you've had a chance to really sort of meet a bit of the who's who on the cybersecurity scene here in Estonia, even if they can't be in the audience today. But to go forward really from this and the background and the last bit about, let's say, why today is a special thing for us, allow me to say just a few more words on my behalf, let's say, setting the scene and the theme for today's event. Well, it is really about, yes, like the name says, EU Cybersecurity Conference. And I mean, the special sub-theme is, digital single market, common digital security. Now, we chose this theme really for the reasons that for digital single market to work, cybersecurity in all of Europe, in all of its different aspects, has to be ensured, right? So, and what better way to do it together, right? So, as cybersecurity is such a strong enabler for digital single market, then us as a presidency, it was a no-brainer to say that as we will focus on DSM in our presidency as the main core theme, well, we also have to talk about cybersecurity with all of you and all of our colleagues. So hence, today's event. Hence also the work we do actively in advancing in our 6 months of presidency time, the work and discussions in all different collaboration formations and groups that are out there on European level. Hence also our readiness to, like Prime Minister said, to take the freshly out EU cybersecurity package as far as we can in our presidency time. And also hence even the practical work we do, for example, exercises for defense ministers or practical toolboxes for foreign policy and so forth, to really make sure that we are even practically more ready to respond if something happens and prevent the risks possibly from happening in the first place. Of course, as you saw and heard from the video as well, I mean, this is constant effort. At no point we can let loose in a way. And ensuring, yeah, cybersecurity is no easy task, easier said than done perhaps. But we don't see that we have an alternative. The more we do go digital, the more the dependencies do grow. But as there are so much benefits to be had, our approach is very simple, and we hope you share this in all of Europe. But let's work on these risks. If we do it enough, this risk can be mitigated and managed, and so that we can reap the benefits. Now, in Estonia, like my Prime Minister said, or our Prime Minister said, then indeed the dependencies have been very visible in even just this last 2 weeks of ours. So we've had a strong reminder of how critical really issues of cybersecurity can be. So yes, as you saw from the video, strong digital identity is one of the pillars for the whole digital society of ours. And yes, in the last days of August, we had international researchers approach us because they had found potential theoretical vulnerability in a batch, in a subset of our identity cards, so one version of our ID. Now, for the past 2 weeks, our cybersecurity community has been rushing to really work hard and mitigate this, actually exactly prevent the possible vulnerability of becoming actual threat and incident and a crisis. So, in our way, we also have to say that our luck is that, of course, we've been trying to think of alternatives along the way. So, for example, even if some ID cards might be affected, mobile ID is there, and so forth. So, again, all the way from planning and designing of things, there are ways we can mitigate the risks. But regardless, I mean, what the ID card issue has been to us a reminder of is that such things are bound to happen, and can very easily happen to any of us, sooner or later, one way or another. Now, so, in that sense, well, we often focus on prevention, right? And for good reasons when it comes to cybersecurity. But what we believe is that exactly a core package also has to be that, a core part of the package has to be that we have to be ready to fast and strongly react, to be resilient, even in the face of acute crisis. So in this regard, by the way, we do welcome that the European Union cybersecurity package now focuses on both sides. How to prevent things from occurring in the first place, but also how to then respond if something has happened. We do believe that our work in Estonia right now perhaps is quite interesting and important in a sense of, yes, how to quickly mobilize and how to mitigate the risk that, if you're faced with them in a strong and fast way. But so we think, just like 10 years ago, we learned from the previous events. This time we're trying to really learn from it and be better the next time. And we are learning valuable lessons on how to really, yes, maintain resilience in the face of significant risk. We hope that these lessons will be useful not just for us, but actually all of us. So exactly in that sense, I can say that, stay tuned for the sharing of those lessons as soon as we are ready for this. But while dealing with the ID card issues now, then we do have indeed found out that the principles you saw and heard from the video, so some of the foundations of, or let's say core principles of how do we do cybersecurity, or how we think about it here in Estonia, actually are very, very useful. And I mean, just to give you one example, yes, despite the issue with the current patch of identity cards, well, that doesn't mean that cryptography doesn't work. Actually, it remains even as important, or if not more important, that cryptography would be there for the correct identity tokens. Or it doesn't mean that identity is broken. To the contrary, a particular patch doesn't mean that the concept and the fundamental pillar does not work. So, and the last bit that the Prime Minister also brought out, well, we clearly have tried to run the approach of transparent risk management, being very open about what might be happening, how do we solve this, and through that, what we have seen as evidence from the people on the streets, trust has not been lost, trust is there. So transparency, strong cryptography, all the things we can do daily, these are, the right ways to go. Now, but what is also more, international cooperation is, again, and the importance of it has been manifested in our recent experience. I mean, let's say in the particular case of our identity cards, well, the fault, it really stems from a combination of components, designed, produced, certified, even shared by various countries and players. So the more, exactly, there needs to be collaboration to make sure that those kind of chains and interdependencies can be managed and mitigated the right way. So we need, yes, more cooperation and networking, at least in Europe, in research, certification, emergency response, you name this. Now, going forward, in Estonia, I mean, just a side note now, I mean, we had already been thinking about that. We have to ourselves be stronger in this area. For example, yes, we are in the process of coming up with and establishing a cybersecurity competence center ourselves soon, so that we could exactly be stronger, even stronger in cryptography and identity and data integrity issues, which have been our pockets of excellence so far. The more, like I said, as networking, we see the value of it. We are eager now to really sort of join the network of European competence centers, as has been proposed by the cybersecurity package. And the same way, we do value all the networks there are. I mean, for example, again, we are in the process of joining SOGIS right now, so the Senior Officials Group on Information Systems Security, exactly for the reasons that there never can be enough sharing happening. So, in a nutshell, yes, we do truly believe that to have cybersecurity in Europe, we need to be united, sharing information, trusting each other, collaborating in all ways we can. It takes more than just the NIST directive, which we do have to implement as well, and for good reasons, but we clearly see that there's more we could be doing. And NIST directive perhaps is just, let's say, the basic security standard or arrangement of collaboration, but there's more perhaps that we need to do. And so, having said all of that, this really, I hope, sets and explains to you now the sort of panels and discussions that will follow today and tomorrow. So from the very start, we intended this 2 days to really focus on, yes, the core discussion of what all should we do in Europe together beyond the ways that we already have agreed, like NIST directive. So, and we do believe, yes, that if we do it, if we manage to do it, then we can also be a global player in the field. And this discussion, of course, could not be more timely, given that the European Commission has offered its own views and proposes to us to discuss in this direction just yesterday with the cybersecurity package. So in a way, we feel, as Estonia, we feel that there are many building blocks already in place, but we want to really discuss with you today and tomorrow, are these the right ones? Is there something else we still should be doing, or in addition, or instead? But also, how do we join these building blocks together and really work in a unison way across the whole continent, so that effectively we could have, and we would have, a single European cyberspace when it comes to defending our single market. Now, and that would then mean that for digital single market, well, in a way, we're trying to create a bit of cybersecurity umbrella, in case you were wondering why there are umbrellas in the decor here. So we hope that you will join us on this journey and this discussion path today and tomorrow. There will be lots of exciting speakers and panelists on the front. And exactly, the discussions will be as good as you participating, so do take an active part in it. Now, speaking of the umbrellas, well, one of the reasons why we have been so keen to do things digital in Estonia is that, well, we don't want to really spend much time outside in the weather. And weather can really affect, physical world in many ways. It has also affected our event here. So because of weather, that's been quite a few last-minute changes in the lineup of our speakers today because, yeah, they've been stuck in Amsterdam or otherwise. And the same thing also happened to our next announced speaker, Monsieur Mounir Mahjoubi, the State Secretary for Digital Affairs in the Republic of France. But he was kind enough, nevertheless, to send us a short video, so you will get a glimpse of what he was going to say, and exactly through the video presence, he will be here with us in just a second now.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Julian. Hi, Siim. Hi, friends. First, I would like to apologize for not being here with you today. As you know, Hurricane Irma has hardly beat the coast of Saint-Martin and Saint-Barthélemy to a French island. The government is fully mobilized, and I have to be in Paris in the coming days. This is the reason I'm not here with you, and I deeply regret it, because as most of you know, the subject of cybersecurity is at the first importance for our government and for me personally. Cybersecurity has become an even more important subject day by day for all our countries in Europe, with specific economical issues, but also political and geopolitical. Alliances of the past are sometimes redefined. I do think that most of our citizens and our leaders are still underestimating what is at stake with the subject of cybersecurity, both in the future of our states, but also for the future of EU itself. In fact, the subject that interests us today is at the heart of what Europe is facing right now, for at least two reasons. First, we have to regain the confidence of European citizens that we are building a Europe that protects them, a Europe that protects its citizens, as President Macron declared in its recent speech in Athens. Second, we have to build this protection without any concession on our ideals, on our values, made of a subtle combination of humanity, equality, and freedom. We think that there are three main directions to reinforce our cybersecurity union. First, we need to build a strong and reliable private sector of cybersecurity, from large groups and companies to small startups that will innovate. It is key to our sovereignty and to help European states, the European Union, and their companies to base some of their cybersecurity capacity on European technologies. Second, we need a reliable regulatory framework. Europe has a unique opportunity with the digital single market to define a certification framework on cybersecurity for our products and services that could become a world-level certification system that will rely on our very high level of expertise we have in Europe. And third, we need to strengthen European level and state level capabilities. First, at the European level, we need to develop our crisis management capabilities based on state-level expertise. And on the state level, we need to focus on three main goals. The first is to have more secured critical infrastructure. Second is to have stronger attack response capabilities that can be shared with other countries. And third, and maybe one of the most important, is to work on the global awareness of the population, of the SMEs, of large companies, of the cybersecurity risk. France welcomes the proposals of the Commission to define a renewed framework for cybersecurity in the EU, and we will contribute to clarify its definition. Today, we encourage all EU states to adopt a cybersecurity pledge recognizing and giving political visibility to their commitment. Thank you for your attention. This subject is key, and I hope that I will have the opportunity to discuss it with you in the coming months. As experts, you have a higher responsibility to enlighten the debate and to prepare our country for the futures. So thank you, and please debate and share as much as you can in the coming hours. Goodbye.
So, from France, let's hop on to the Netherlands as next. So to join us for also a keynote and a bit of, let's say, opening words will now be the head of cybersecurity policy from the Dutch Ministry of Security and Justice. So his job is really to implement and develop the national cybersecurity strategy as well as the international policies in this field. So ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Mr. Michel van Leeuwen.
Ladies and gentlemen, chers collègues, liebe Freunde, friendship is essentially a partnership. Wise words by a very wise man. It was the Greek philosopher Aristotle who spoke these words over 2,000 years ago. He was communicating completely wireless, directly to his audience and his pupils. He, of course, knew nothing about the online world, but his words apply now more than ever. Because we are all connected, and therefore we can all be affected. So we have to be friends and partners for a common digital security, as is the theme of this conference. As we heard, 10 years ago, our friends from Estonia were under a serious cyber attack that crippled dozens of government and company websites. Thousands of computers were used in a coordinated attack against government agencies and banks. A couple of years later, in 2011, the Netherlands faced similar problems of its own. Hackers broke into a Dutch company responsible for issuing certificates to secure internet communications and government websites. Because of this hack, the reliability of government websites could no longer be guaranteed. For the Netherlands, the DigiNota case was our first cyber crisis. It was a wake-up call, a turning point in cybersecurity for us. As a result, we founded the National Cybersecurity Center. And now, years later, we are again at a turning point. Current cyber threats, such as WannaCry and NotPetya, show us how dependent we are from each other. They show us we have to work together. We have to work together towards a common digital security. And that's why I'm honored to join this international community of partners. Today, I would like to share a few thoughts with you on the increasing complexity of the cyber threats and what the Netherlands is doing against them. I would like to take the opportunity to congratulate the EU on announcing the cyber package and say a few words about why we are happy with this next step. Just as our host Estonia, the Netherlands is one of the mostly wired countries. 95% of our youth uses social media, and babies are able to swipe before they're able to talk. And we owe 1/3 of our economic growth in the last decade to ICT. But these same advantages make us extra vulnerable. Cyber has become mainstream, but so has cybercrime and economic espionage. In our recent cybersecurity assessment, which we make in close cooperation with intelligence services, cyber experts from the private and the public sector and the military, we identify a number of threats. First, state actors and cyber criminals still pose the biggest digital threat to our economic and national security. They are carrying out more complex operations and use more advanced techniques than before. The Netherlands is concerned by the increased ability and willingness of state and non-state actors to pursue their objectives using cyber tools. In our country, cyber criminals are responsible for almost 10 billion euros damage a year. That's almost 600 euros per resident. And it's only a matter of years when 50% of criminal cases will have to do with cybercrime, according to our Public Prosecution Office. At the time when WannaCry virus hit several countries worldwide, the Netherlands, luckily, only had little damage. Only one major problem was reported. Because of WannaCry, hundreds of clients in a large parking garage couldn't pay. So they were allowed to park for free. And it won't come as a surprise that there were many Dutch people and not many complaints about the free parking. However, governments and the private sector were forced to do a major check whether they had been infected or not. NotPetya, on the other hand, caused more damage in the Netherlands. This, at first sight, was strange because the attack seemed to be aimed against the Ukraine. But as a large shipping company in the harbor of Rotterdam had a site in the Ukraine, it was hit hard. Ships could not unload their products and had to be redirected. It was a real wake-up call, especially for harbor master René de Vries. He realized once again how important his role as Dutch port cyber resilience officer nowadays is. Or, like he said in the Dutch newspaper, imagine what would have happened if the attack would have even been more disruptive. In short, we have a cyber rat race between those who try to protect our digital domain and those who try to use the digital domain for malicious intent. So you might ask, what do we do in order to tackle these threats and challenges? Let me introduce you to a policy of coordinated vulnerability disclosure, and to introduce you to an experiment our Dutch fire brigade recently undertook. Like many countries, the Netherlands still has some thinly populated areas. The Dutch fire brigade has a special communication unit for internet access in areas where there is hardly any mobile coverage. So they can have a view where all their fire trucks and personnel are during, for example, a forest fire. During a hackers festival last month, they asked visitors to test the digital security of their communications unit. So imagine a festival with hundreds of white hat hackers with their families for 4 days in tents doing what they love most, hacking computers. These friendly hackers needed no more than 90 minutes to find several weaknesses that could have severe impact on the communication for the fire brigade. And with the hackers' advice, the emergency services are taking concrete steps to diminish or stop digital vulnerabilities. These guys and girls from the fire brigade have an image for being tough, but it took a lot of courage to have their cybersecurity tested. Another test is the experiment we're doing called FIRM with the Port of Rotterdam. We were already working closely together on cybersecurity with various sectors, for example, finance and telecom. But with the Port of Rotterdam, instead of focusing on a sector, we are looking at a certain area and connect all the companies in that area. So coordinated vulnerability disclosure on the one hand, and our experiment FIRM on the Port of Rotterdam. 2 important steps towards becoming more cyber resilient. Yet, the reality is that advancing the resilience of individuals and organizations goes slower than the pace at which the threats are emerging, which of course is worrying. The risks are getting bigger and bigger, and the protective measurements we are taking are probably not enough. Therefore, I stress again the importance of cooperation. Cooperation between government entities, cooperation with the private sector, and cooperation within the European Union and with third countries. We should work together to effectively prevent, deter, and respond to cyber threats. The Netherlands has made an effort during its presidency to contribute to EU cooperation by putting forward Council conclusions on criminal justice in cyberspace and a proposal to jointly, diplomatically respond to malicious cyber activity. Enhanced cooperation, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the reasons why we are updating our national strategy. The role of my agency is to coordinate cyber agreements and proposals of all ministries into one plan. And just As we did with our former cyber strategy, the update we're working on will be a result of public-private partnership. For example, in our Cybersecurity Council, a strategic partnership from government, businesses, and science. Let me share a few ambitions we have with this national update. First of all, a comprehensive system of cybersecurity partners, meaning that we're helping a whole national network with their cybersecurity. Not only our vital sector, like banks, transport, and telecom, but also the thousands of smaller and medium-sized companies. The Ministry of Economic Affairs is, with our assistance, setting up a so-called Digital Trust Center. The idea of this center is that smaller and medium-sized companies are also enabled to share information about attacks, receive expertise and advice, and help each other out. Of course, this is still work in progress, since you can imagine that there is no one-size-fits-all for all these different 1.6 million companies in the Netherlands. Another element in the update is a dynamic approach of cyber risks. On the one hand, cyber threats and risks are increasing and changing rapidly. On the other hand, new laws could take years. So our goal is to be more flexible, more dynamic. But this remains a dilemma, which you all might face. How to keep the marketplace dynamic and how to minimize the limiting conditions for market growth. Let me give an example. When I buy a car that isn't safe, I can go back to the dealer and hold him responsible. When I buy software that isn't secure, I can go back to... Actually, I don't know. Isn't that strange? We think it is. So that's why we're aiming for a more binding set of agreements, for example, about liability and certification, nationally and internationally. Together with our partners, with you. So summarizing, cyber is mainstream, and so is cybercrime and espionage. And therefore it won't surprise you when I summarize our ambitions for our new strategy. We want to mainstream cybersecurity. I want to be engaged with even a more proactive role of government. And with the new proposals by the EU, we're taking steps towards this goal. During the State of the Union, President Juncker announced new proposals to enhance the EU cyber resilience. We have negotiated for 3 years about the NIS directive, with some good results. And now we have to stay focused and ensure effective implementation. Then the Cyber Diplomacy Toolbox, an initiative that has been introduced during the Netherlands presidency. Recently, the European Council agreed to develop a framework for a joint EU diplomatic response to malicious cyber activities. The Cyber Diplomacy Toolbox. This toolbox enables us to strengthen our diplomatic response to cyber attacks and to influence the behavior of potential attackers in the long term. Cooperation is essential, both on political, strategic, and operational level. And I'm really glad that there has been a successful cooperation between European CSIRTs in the relatively new EU CSIRT network during the WannaCry attack and the NotPetya attack. Information was shared and the first EU integrated cyber situation report was co-produced. We have been building several structures during the recent years, and it's good to see that these structures work. Therefore, I would like to highlight the necessity to make use of these existing mechanisms, structures, and organizations at the EU level, instead of creating new ones. Some of them are still babies, and let us not kill our cyber babies. I would like to conclude my speech with an international example of our common fight against cyber criminals. Quite recently, several European police forces, in cooperation with FBI, the US Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA, and Europol, succeeded in infiltrating the dark websites, Alphabet, and Hansa. And those sites, criminals were trading drugs and stolen goods. Through the shared effort of different law enforcement agencies, national and international, these websites were closed. One major and important side effect of closing these websites was that we noticed that criminals stopped trusting these kinds of websites. Catching cybercriminals, of course, remains a challenge. Yet, by working closely together, cross-border, public and private, and by investing in dedicated teams of experts, we're able to know where the threat is coming from and by who. Now is a special time for Europe. A special time for Europe to show its leadership in cybersecurity. The Netherlands is ready to help realize this. And I thank Estonia for their leadership in cybersecurity. The best time to make friends is before you need them, is an old saying. And I would say we need each other more than ever. Thank you.
Thank you, and exactly, I quite appreciate this look into how you're thinking in the Netherlands and your road ahead. Now, as I promised in the beginning, it's the intention is to have a bit of discussion. So there are mics that can go around, and we would actually be happy to take a question or two from who would like to ask anything at all. But to get us going, to give you 1 minute to think about it, I'll start with the first question, and then raise your hands. I would like to zoom into one point you mentioned, which was actually fascinating to me, the Digital Trust Center. So a way to actually sort of engage SMEs and the wider business community also in the cybersecurity discussion and have their skills being lifted, right? What has been their sort of interest or approach to this? I mean, how eager they actually to welcome this initiative, and are they saying, look, don't bother with us with the next thing now, or rather, it's about time?
Well, in the Netherlands, we have had the National Cybersecurity Center for a number of years, and the main focus of the policies also have been to make sure we don't have really disruptive incidents. So the focus had been on government security and critical infrastructure security, as we have been doing in Europe in the NIS directive. And what we noticed is that there was an increasing number of companies who would like to join sort of the family of the National Cybersecurity Center and being helped with expertise. And we couldn't cope with the demand, actually. So we started thinking, should we grow a cybersecurity center to, it's now like 120 people? Should it grow to 1,000 people and then help all the companies? And we thought, no, we would like to pursue another avenue. We would like to bring cybersecurity to the companies, so that they don't have to come to the National Cybersecurity Center, but that cybersecurity centers are coming to them. So we are envisioning the setup of regional and sectoral cybersecurity centers in the future in the Netherlands, so we can reach, with the cybersecurity expertise, every company in the Netherlands and help them with their cybersecurity. And the Digital Trust Center will be a big part of that as being capacity builders for the Netherlands.
Fair enough. All right, so who else wants to ask something from Michel? Nobody, really? You won't get your coffee break before someone asks. All right. Oh, sorry, can we get a mic there?
Well, thank you very much for a very interesting and comprehensive debate or point of views. I understand that in the Netherlands, by the way, my name is John Foley, I'm from Copenhagen, Denmark. And I understand you are on the verge of having a third or fourth cybersecurity strategy. The first of them being the Nota incidents that you mentioned. What makes you write a cyber strategy number 4 now? Other countries haven't even written their first. So I understand that you're emphasizing the public-private partnership. and in your national cybersecurity council, you're working with the public and the private and science. I think it's also academia. What is your experience? Could you elaborate on what's new in your cyber strategy?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you. Actually, the update we're working on is working towards a third cyber strategy, but we don't vision it as a new cybersecurity strategy. We vision it actually as a renewal or an update of a cybersecurity strategy, and we sort of secretly hope that it'll be the last cybersecurity strategy, which will be sort of an instrument that will help us from years to come. Because obviously, all of you who have made a cybersecurity strategy know that it's a lot of work. But the reason we think we need a renewal of that is that the world has changed quite rapidly. If we look at the time when we were making our second strategy, which was in 2013, it came out in October 2013. We didn't see large DDoS attacks on a massive scale. We didn't see that in the Netherlands, real cross-border severe espionage in the way that it's now. We didn't see the cyber criminals so fastly innovating and switching over to state actors and back. So the threat is emerging and going on. So that we have to step up. And one of the things that will be sort of front and center in the strategy will be the Digital Trust Center and the network of cybersecurity centers in the Netherlands we're building up. Another one would be, and I think a lot of what we do there will be also a European effort. Will be that we're stepping up from public-private cooperation and enhancing that with maybe some proactive role of government, maybe some regulation, maybe some certification, because we didn't get there with only the dialogue. We need something more, something extra. And we also see that a lot of countries are developing their offensive cyber capabilities, and we have to have an answer to that as well. That wasn't there in 2013. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, Michel, and well, thank you for your views, and good luck with all of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's put our hands together.